Hey, it's Barry
and Dave
down here at Headwaters Lake, and of course we are here with Hooked on Headwaters behind us. Today we're going to go ahead and we got a special video coming up where Dan's going to talk about pitching. It's something if you don't do currently, it's something that you definitely want to get into. It's a lot of fun. Yep. It opens up a lot of opportunity that you may not be taking advantage of right now. When it comes to fishing, sometimes we kind of get caught up in our same routines, our same baits, our same way of doing things. So definitely check this video out. Dan did a great job really breaking down the art of pitching into bite-sized pieces that you're able to just go, okay, great. I know how to start. I know what to do here. I know what to look for. I know what rod to use. I know what base to use, all the way through. So that's what you're going to see in this video. So we're going to go and see Dan in the water and win.
Well, I learned a lot from this video. This is one to save. This is one to share. This is one to review several times. There's a lot of good golden nuggets all in there. So make sure you view it. Make sure, please, we ask you to subscribe. It really, really helps us out with the channel. Yep. Comment on it. Comment on what Captain Dan had to say. Any ideas about pitching?
Or even your favorite pitch and bait. What do you like to use? What colors do you like? What's your setup?
Do so in the comment section.
Yep. Okay, now we're going to go see Dan.
We're going to Dan right now.
Okay guys, what I'm going to do is show you how I rig up my one of my rigs for my pitching. So I've already put my bobber stopper. You can see it here on the line. I like the bobber stopper. You see. And for a lot of the stuff that I do, I like a ½ ounce it's a good starting point, depending on how thick your grass is. Like here we're going to be doing a little bit of flipping it in some hydrilla edges. ½ ounce is good. It's not super heavy and kind of overpower the bait. So I've got a ½ ounce tungsten weight, and I've got a this happens to be a 3/0 extra wide gap Gamakatsu. I really like those hooks. So for this, I'm going to use a polymer knot. Cinch this down. Trim the tag off, then we'll go to our soft plastic. Gotta get a bait down. Okay, I'm back with I'm going to rig up my soft plastic. This happens to be a Netbait Dagger in Plum Magic. Pretty cool bait, got a nice slim profile. So I'm going to rig this weedlessly, obviously. I like to go to my bend of the hook, come out, I roll my soft plastic over, work it up over the eye and the knot. Not too far, there we go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically push the hook straight through the bait and T-expose it, or I call it skin hooking on the other side. So I kind of measure about where the bait should go through. Go through the center of it. So now I've got this hook sticking out. Pull that up, and I grab the bait and kind of push forward and back. And now I have a nice streamlined weedless rig. Then I'll pull my bobber stopper down. Keeps my weight close to my lure, and we're ready to go. Okay guys, so what I've got a 7-foot medium heavy rod. Loose reel. Most of that is not super important. I do want a medium heavy to heavy rod, but I want a smooth reel that allows the line to flow off of the spool very easily. So I back my spool off. Basically it's in total free spool, so my line can peel out nice and easy. So as you're starting to learn, I learned at home years ago when I was a kid. I learned how to do this at home, so if you have a day you can't fish, if you guys just starting out with pitching, that would be the way to go. So I'm going to pick a target, like I see one little sprig of hydrilla here that I'm going to pitch at. So So the key is allowing the bait to do most of the work. It's not a cast per se. It's all underhanded. It's kind of like a pendulum swings. And you just try to give that little swing a little extra gas by a lift of your rod tip. But the key is picking a point and working at that point. Okay, so there's some technique to this. First thing first, let's make sure that our rod and reel mainly is set up properly. You want your bait to fall very easily. Watch my spool here, how quickly this falls. It's basically a free spool, or is free. See how it'll give you a little backlash if you want it that loose. We're not going to be really casting with this, so we want it loose so the line goes out nice and easy. So what I'd like to do is about this much line where it's comfortable. I don't want my line too long, because I'll get tangled up like I just did here, and you won't be able to pitch properly. So, too much line, you want it just above, about where your reel is, just above your reel, about that much line. If you'll notice, my line from my rod tip to my bait is very taut. I've got it in my fingers. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, as I release the bait, I'm going to lift the rod tip, and what that does is it accelerates the bait out of my hand. Now, when I say accelerate, we're not trying to cast it 100 feet. We're only going 20-25 feet to this edge of the closest hydrilla here. So what we want to make sure we do is just lift our rod tip as we're controlling the line. When you first release it, you're going to let basically just barely have your thumb on the spool, and as you get closer to the water, you're going to slow your spool, just kind of feather it very gently. So I'll demonstrate. Okay, let's do that again. So when I say I lift my rod tip, look where I'm starting. I've already picked my target. I lower my rod tip, and my hand is traveling with me, so I can keep my main line taut. So I've got my target. As I lift my rod tip, I'm letting go of the bait. So again, and one more time. Now we're just gonna lift our rod tip and send it on its way. It looks simplistic, and once you get the hang of it, it's really not too difficult. But one of the main things is spool control and a rod tip control. If you'll watch, if I do it too hard, this is what happens. Okay, way over there, and then now I have a backlash, which is what we don't want. Now, as you get more proficient with this technique, you will be able to pitch 50 feet pretty regularly, pretty easily. So for now, we just want to start small. If you've never done it before, when I started, as I said, I did it at home, not on the boat. I stood on something like a milk crate or a heavy box that I could be elevated about the height of the deck of my boat, and I had targets in my yard. It could be a leaf, a couple leaves, it could be a coffee cup, whatever it is. Pick a target, because just pitching randomly, you're not going to develop your accuracy. This is a very technique that's very accuracy oriented. Is that the right way to say it, Dave? Accuracy is important, so you can put it in an area the size of a teacup. If there's a small little opening or a small little hole in a mat or something like that, you want to be able to get your accuracy. Okay guys, so let's watch my rod positioning. Where my rod tip starts, where the pitch starts, and where it ends, where the position of my rod when it ends. So again, we have a taut main line. I'm going to drop my rod tip. I'm going to lift my rod tip as I let go of this bait. Don't cast it or throw the bait with your hand. You want to pull it out of your hand and just release it. Don't hold it too tight and let it slide out with too much of a grip, because you'll get a hook in the hand. Okay, so watch my rod, see where it starts, see where it ends. My rod tip is not quite vertical, nearly vertical. So as my bait, when I pitch, as my bait's nearing my target location, just before it gets there, I'm starting to feather the spool with my thumb to slow the bait down, preparing it for the entry into the water. So I basically start almost free spool. I just barely have my thumb on it, and then I slow it down as my bait gets close to the water. Now, some nice things that once you become proficient with this, you can work on your accuracy and work on a silent presentation, as in when it, what I like to do, when it enters the water, I want it to go in silently in most situations. I think it, when you're on a real calm, quiet day and you're pitching, I think it makes a big difference. Instead of having a big splash over the fish's head that kind of warns them that something's there, I like it to just surprise them and be in their face. Now, there are times I do like it to make a bit of a splash to kind of get their attention, maybe on a little bit windier day. So just a nice silent entry. That wasn't very silent. Okay guys, so I know most folks are right-handed. I am right-handed as well. A suggestion that I have to you, if you have mostly right-handed bait casters, teach yourself how to do this with the rod in your left hand. It'll save you a lot of time and you'll miss a lot less fish. The problem with pitching right-handed is this right here, having to change hands. There's a lot of pros that talk about this, that having to change hands. Years ago, I forced myself to learn how to do this left-handed. I flip and pitch left-handed. And the reason being is I was missing a lot of bites. In the process of switching hands, I would switch hands and I go to lift and lower my bait, and there was already a fish on there, and I had missed him. Where if I'd have just learned it with my left hand, my line is tight, I can feel the fish on the bite. So, the places I fish this, it can really be anywhere. And it can really be just about any lure. You could pitch a topwater lure. You just got to be careful of the treble hooks. But it's a short-range presentation. So guys, what we're fishing now is some hydrilla edges near deep water. I like a real defined edge with hydrilla and with a pitching technique. Also, like this here off to the side, it's got some willow bushes and a floating mat, a little bitty floating island there, so to speak. That's a great place for pitching. Now, in some of those situations, I'll use a heavier weight, up to 1.5 ounces, between 1 ounce, 1.5 ounces, and actually punch through that vegetation, and you can see that in some other videos. But today we're focused on pitching, so what you can do is go around and pitch around those edges, and also you can go in and pitch in the holes and things that are visible in there, where a lighter weight can go through. So guys, something that's important about learning how to pitch is it's a kind of a fast-paced technique. And you can cover a lot of water in a very short period of time. I've already made 4 presentations in less than a minute. Now that is kind of fast. Sometimes you find that you need to soak your bait a little bit longer. What I mean by that is having it in the water a little bit longer. But right now I'm just looking to get a reaction strike to see, okay, are they going to be in the hydrilla? Are they going to be up in this thicker vegetation? This particular thing is old willow trees that has a mat that's blown up into the willow trees. It's kind of hung up in there and gives the bass a little overhead area kind of to hide under and stay out of the sun, kind of up in a shaded area. So you can go through, as you can see, you can go through and pick through a spot like this and make multiple presentations in a very short period of time. Okay guys, just a quick recap. Nice loose spool on your reel, smart thumb, and a medium heavy to heavy action rod. I like a 7 to 7.5 foot rod, and starting out I think a ½ ounce weight with a plastic bait on it to practice with that is a good place to start. Line selection wise, if I'm fishing really heavy cover, I like straight braid. This happens to be 50-pound Cortland Master Braid, the silent flip, very smooth line. I like the 50-pound. If I'm in really clear water without super heavy vegetation, there's been many times I've went 20-pound mono. I don't know if it gets me a few more bites. I feel like it does. So there's that. So remember your technique. Line tight as you pitch. Where your rod starts, remember looking through the video where my rod started and where I finished as I'm paying out line, and then as my bait's in the water, and then now I'm fishing it. So my right hand goes up to my reel, engages my reel, and I'm following the bait down with my line tight, because probably 85–90% of your bites are going to come on the initial fall of the bait. Once you fished your bait, I usually yo-yo or hop, and I pick up and do it again. So I'll have a spot I'm fishing here, but I've already picked out 3 or 4 different places that look fishy to me. So I try to be very efficient and with this technique. So I'm not picking up and then looking around, where do I go? Oh, let's go there. So pick your spots, work your technique at home, starting out. If you can't get out on the water, that way you don't get frustrated when your buddy's catching fish and you're trying to learn a new technique and he's making fun of you. You're better off to learn at home so you can show him up. So also with pitching, I fish a Texas rig worm a lot. This happens just to be a 10-inch worm with a 3/16 ounce weight. Now usually it's a casting technique, but sometimes you can incorporate pitching in with it. So you're casting and fishing your longer targets and you happen to see something close to the boat. So instead of putting down one rod or re-rigging a rod to make one pitch, you just pitch your lighter bait over there. As you get more proficient, you will see that you can do it with a lighter bait. Also, we talked about flipping, punching. When I say I'm punching, it's usually I'm flipping and pitching at the same, using both techniques, whatever fits distance-wise. My flipping is very close range, within 12 foot or so of the boat. My pitching is usually further out with a big, at least 1 ounce weight. Heavy braid again, and a strong hook. Okay guys, let's go over bait selection real quick. I like, for the most part, with most of my pitching techniques, I like a streamline bait. Like I was saying earlier, this happens to be the Netbait's Dagger in the plum magic color, really cool color. I pitch sometimes with a Cinco or Cinco style, just a straight tail worm, creature baits, craws. I'll pitch a big worm. It depends on my vegetation that I'm fishing and what I feel like the fish are going to eat. So if I'm fishing things like these cattails behind me, I avoid big long curly tail worms, because the tail catches on the vegetation and it ruins your cast or your pitch. So I opt for a more streamlined bait like the Dagger, little crawl or imitation baits, creature baits, those kinds of things, and fairly compact. You can put them in the tight places around these cattails, and they'll sink through the hydrilla real well. So in closing, remember your technique: working your rod, keeping your line snug. Don't try to throw with your bait holding hand. It's not a throw. All the work is done with the reel. All this hand is used for is just to keep the line snug until you release it. And practice at home. You'll be happy that you did. That's how I learned, and that way when you're on the water, it's not a frustrating process and you give up. A lot of guys will give up on things like that. So practice at home on a day that you just don't have time to fish. Thanks a lot.